categories and apply. You can apply. Applications are available for categories including CEO, CMO, and CTO of the Year, and company awards in categories including software, physical product, and marketing are now open. Make sure you check this out. We have a long-lost friend here on today's show. Give us a intro.
Shideler Bennett, managing partner at Initiator, and from Spanish Fork, so I'm outnumbered here with 2 Spanish Forkians.
Not only,
Place to
right
be from.
before we came on, not only is he from Spanish Fork, we grew up in the same ward. His dad was my bishop. He knows the Morleys.
I am a Morley.
He is a
Yeah.
Morley. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Your dad married a Morley.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, I know your dad really well,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. So how cool is that, Garrett?
I just
Loser?
feel bad for his dad, your bishop.
Yeah, there was a lot of one-on-ones. There was a lot of one-on-ones.
Good for you. I didn't hear about any of it. So
He earned his $0 salary with you.
He definitely did. Hey, what are you working on these days?
you know what? There is a lot to be working on, but the biggest thing is coming out of the Crumbl craze and really focusing on the debt business. My eyes have really been open to the opportunities in debt with high interest rates right now. You know, all of the wealthy families understand that there's places that you can go put your money to work. And what we've built at Initiator is a place for businesses to come and get access to that capital if the banks aren't giving it to them, and then provide opportunities for investors that might not be as familiar with what's available to come in, put some money, and realize that we're going to be lending and supporting businesses with that capital in a relatively low risk way rather than putting it into equity.
So what is, do you own Crumbls?
Yeah, so I own 9 Crumbls and did that over the
Wow.
last 3 years. And I tell people we made every mistake possible in the process by going as quickly as possible to capture the excitement and the novelty as it was growing throughout the country, and learned a lot. But things are stabilizing now, and I talk a lot about it on LinkedIn and the pros and cons that have come with that. But I think long-term Crumbl's a great brand. They're finally starting to iterate and really decided to go further into the dessert market rather than pivoting too much and doing, other pastries and things that seemed maybe like they fit, but were a bit of a stretch, and those might come later. But it seems like the dessert limited time offer options that they're doing, it's working.
Yeah.
So do you help people like buy Crumbls or just any type of business?
So on the Initiator business, that is strictly non-dilutive debt, or debt that's not going to take any of the equity. And then outside of that, because
see.
I own
Okay.
franchises, I do have a lot of people that come and ask for, consulting or help just to understand, how do I even start? What do I do, and how do I not make as many mistakes as I made in the process? And so there's a lot of that. My focus has been helping people focus less on equity investing and focus more on cash flow. So between short-term rentals and franchises, debt, there's just a lot more ways that you can really get that ball rolling to build your income and work towards that financial freedom than to, like we were talking about before, push all the chips in on some equity plays, really hoping that you bet on the right jockey and that things are going to work out long term. Always there's a place for that, but I wish I would have done more of the steady building of the cash flow from a younger age.
Yeah.
We'll do a little bit of reading rainbow here because debt is obviously different than equity, but in the deal structures, oftentimes there's both, right?
Right.
So with Initiator, you guys will look at businesses in the same way any investor would, right?
Right.
And there's sometimes equity is the best solution, but oftentimes it's not. So let's just use an example. You had a debt fund, right? You had raised the money, or grandma gave you a big inheritance.
Yep.
Rather than do $1 million investments in, seed stage or Series A, you would use that money and allocate it to these companies and entrepreneurs in the form of debt. So talk a little bit about how that looks for you guys and the entrepreneur.
Yeah. we actively encourage people that if it's a new concept, whether that's a franchise, short-term rentals, any type of business, when you're just getting started out, debt is a really risky option, right? Because now you're adding that extra stress and the payments that come along with that. And that's where we say, yeah, early on, equity should be the option depending on the risk of the operation. But as that shifts and you get more and more comfortable with the predictability of your business, that's where you should start considering debt. So we tell people around $1 million a year in revenue is when we can start working with you to find different solutions. Every business is different. There's going to be different assets that can be used to lend against to give you more favorable terms. There are unsecured options, but looking even at SBA loans, you can see who are they going to lend to and why would they do that? And as a business owner, you're going to have to come up with similar documentation, even if you're going to go get money on the private side. So being organized, doing your bookkeeping, all of the basics of business that just make it run correctly, that's what's going to look good. Whether you're going to a bank, which we encourage you, go to a bank, see what you can get. Then if you need more funding or if you're not fitting their appetite, which many businesses don't, that's where we can be a huge resource to come in and give you some of these alternative solutions. And the reason we have those is we have relationships with private debt funds, family offices, and other groups that can look very narrowly at a specific appetite that they might have a background in, and they would understand the market and the business enough to get comfortable with that risk. And then for our investors, either we can cherry pick the very best deals, or we can have groups completely underwrite the business, get really comfortable with it, say, hey, we'll lend these people, let's say $1 million. And instead we say, actually, we have some investors that are interested. We'd like to come in and put $200,000 of our own money in that deal and split our investors' dollars against multiple really strong deals. We're also co-investing with other groups that have spent a lot of time and money underwriting this, doing all the legal, so that we really can do it in a very low risk way.
Gotcha. Let's use an example. I'm not sure if this is part of what Initiator looks at, but a land excavation company. They've got obviously costs with machinery and gas, some employees, but they would like to grow a little bit because the demand is there. And just for funsies, let's say it's $500,000.
Right.
Everything works out. Everything's organized. They come to you. There's going to be a rate of repayment. Eventually, if everything goes well, it will be repaid. But how does the deal look and flow from their perspective? What are they going to be on the hook for, and why is it advantageous if it works out?
First and foremost, it's going to have a lot to do with the purpose of the funds. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go, but a lot of our construction clients will come to us when they get out of sync between their accounts receivable and their accounts payable. And usually there's some time where they might be really light on cash and they'd like to have a buffer. So we really like to focus on helping people get that line of credit in times that are good, so that then when you do have those valleys that get rough, you've got some resources. I had someone just call me as I was traveling over the weekend. I'm in the airport talking to this guy, and he had been doing significant revenue, a couple $100,000 a month. And he's like, I don't know if I really need debt. I said, well, if for the very least, let's get you some low cost line of credit and talk to your bank. Make sure you have access to lines on your credit cards, because you never know, right? That's kind of a minimum thing. When times are good, bump up those credit lines, give yourself access. And what happened is the beginning of the year started and his business declined significantly really quick. And so obviously he's getting as lean as he can. But then if he didn't have access to that credit, the reason he was calling me was basically saying, if I didn't have this, I would have had to shut my doors, or I would have had to raise equity in a vulnerable position and really give up a lot more than I would have wanted. And so that's where there is a big aspect of being proactive in funding. So in the excavation business, he might have a huge contract that he lined up, and now he's like, I need $500,000 tomorrow. And we can go get money quickly, but there's always a price to that. So the more proactive you can be, the better terms you can get, and the better situation, less stress that we can provide long term.
Yeah.
It's freaking me out. You look like every Morley I ever grew up with. It's fascinating. It's kind of like a trip down memory lane. This is awesome.
What happens in Spanish Fork? You guys all know each other,
That's very cool.
but nobody else knows you guys.
A lot of relations. We're trying to get
Why
out
would
there,
they?
you know.
I guess
We don't want them in.
that is evident.
We don't want them in there. All right. So, real quick, Ryan Smith. There's a big story on ESPN yesterday or today about him kind of talking about, hey, we're not just going to be the Utah NHL team for the first year, because there's this idea that we were just going to be the Utah Hockey Club. So he's hired a branding firm, and I think he's still going to take voting into consideration. But it seems like before the season begins, we will have a name.
Yeah,
Like that.
there's still many, many months before the next season.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I hope it's something good, right? Blizzard is these are the ones that have been trademarked as of Wednesday by a group tied to Ryan. Blizzard, Fury, Hockey Club, Ice, Mammoth, Outlaws, Venom, and Yetis. I like Outlaws, and that might be it, and the ones I like.
No,
On
you're
that
no
list.
longer on the Fury train?
I never liked the furries, ever.
Was that a furries I heard there or
Yeah,
furies?
It's a long
Ooh.
standing joke, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can be the Furies after the furries fiasco
Yeah.
that
the
happened
furries.
recently. So I
It's
think
too
that one's
close.
out. Utah Ice. What do you think of that one?
Hate. So
Yeah, I don't like that one either.
So dumb.
I don't like Mammoth. I like of these ones. I like Outlaws.
Yeah,
I think they should put Cutthroats in the mix, and I think that they should put Pioneers in the mix.
yeah,
Pioneers is a great sports team name.
yeah.
Now I kind of want that to be our Major League Baseball team name, but
Oh, I like that.
you never know.
So now it's in the hands of creatives, though, and branding experts.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah, last time I was in a meeting, well, I probably shouldn't tell that story, actually. Never mind. That
Never
was the
mind.
old jazz rebrand meeting story. That's not a good idea.
No. Yeah, I hope they listen to people and don't sit on a high horse. But Outlaws, like if you're going to have to pick one, I
If
like
it's
that one.
between those, I like Outlaws, but I don't like Blizzard. We're not known for Blizzards. There's
No.
nothing about that that's cool. It feels like a shake from a fast food restaurant.
That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like if
Um,
we would have found like a mammoth frozen here and we could be like known and somehow that relates to, you know,
Yeah.
ice hockey, whatever, that could work. And there's got to be enough fossils and stuff around here
Yeah.
that could justify something,
Yeah,
right?
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could easily be the dinosaurs, right? Like, or you could pick a specific
Mm.
dinosaur. If you've ever been to Vernal, there's a lot
Oh, that's true.
out there. but-
Outlaws is the only one on this list that ties back to our history as a state.
And the
Okay.
mascot would be so cool and easy.
Yeah, the
And
mascot
fun.
would be cool. It'd be Woody,
I like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that would audition for that one.
including
Absolutely.
you,
Yeah.
who's
I'd
still
need-
wearing Dixie State T-shirts 5 years after the name has been changed.
I'd need to lose a lot of weight, but that'd be fun. That's, can you imagine that? There's people that wake up every day and they're like, I'm going to head to the stadium. And they put on a mascot costume, and it's got to be a pretty fun life.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Just
that's
making
cool.
people happy.
Mount Nebo Middle School in our neck of the woods has been evacuated after 3 threats in 2 weeks.
Well,
There's been like bomb threats towards that. I think, does this tie back to the furry thing?
I don't know. I haven't read
I
this
think that one
yet.
was Payson.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know why this one has been. They've been calling in bomb threats and they've had to evacuate a ton, which is no fun. That sucks.
It's crazy
Scary.
because it's been like 20, 30 years that you can trace phone calls and figure out who's
Right.
doing that, right? Like, it's not going to end well for the people calling. It's not like it's 1966 and you can call from a payphone.
The star 67 still work.
Yeah, I have
right?
no idea.
Yeah, it's our 6-7 it.
Oh, okay.
300 people were arrested last night at Columbia, in New York City at Columbia College. Did you see all this? This was crazy. And there was some talk of like maybe there were terrorists or a wife of a terrorist, which I don't even know what that means, was part of the crowd that was protesting Columbia. The crazy thing, like, so obviously we all know what they're protesting. They're
Right.
pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
And this is happening at the University of Utah even, and there were some arrests there recently, maybe even more last night. I haven't looked at it, but Columbia made national news as the police came in, and they look like an army.
Yeah.
The equipment that they have, they're rolling in with like tanks.
I think the NYPD
It's kind of wild.
has the 7th largest standing army in the world.
That's so crazy.
So I don't think they're going to lack any resources or initiative.
For like these, no offense, but these like second-year humanities students who don't even know anything other than, what they read their freshman year.
Yeah. Well, I think with most cases, whether it's Occupy Wall Street or any good old-fashioned sit-in or protest, there's going to be a lot of outsiders that never went to Columbia. They probably couldn't even get into the JUCO there. They're just there to have fun, agitate, and be muckruckers, and that's when it gets a little worrisome, is when the professional agitators get in there.
Did you see one of the protesters, like, she did a press conference? The protesters did a press conference.
Yeah.
And in the press conference, they said, one of them was like, we need 5 Guys delivered to us. This is humanitarian aid. We need humanitarian aid.
Yeah. In New York City, where you can't throw a rock without hitting a delicious restaurant.
It's like, what? Just
go get it yourself.
Go for a walk. Might do you some good, actually, to just think about what you're doing in a tent. And just go get some food and come back. You can come back. How about that?
And your tent might not be here, but that might be the way to get them all. We got 5 Guys. It's 2 blocks away. It's in like a paddy wagon. They just all go in like lemmings. None of them come back. The tents are gone. Like, that was easy.
Well, one of the demands that I heard was they want to abolish police on campus.
Sure.
Which has nothing to do with what's happening in Gaza or Israel. Like, that's so far away from anything that's realistic or even relevant.
It devolves really quickly into all sorts of demands that have nothing to do.
Imagine what's the university supposed to do? Like, yeah, all right.
Okay.
We'll get rid of them. Anything else? Got your 5 Guys for you. Here you go. Is everybody comfy in their tents?
Our books are too expensive. We want cheaper, but they'll just keep going.
Yeah.
They'll just keep going. And then in like a year and a half, they're going to be sitting in a job interview, and somebody's going to say, what did you think of all of that?
Aren't you that girl who did that press conference and demanded 5 Guys?
Yeah.
Imagine her interview.
And she's like, yeah, and I demand colder water during this interview. And they're like, okay, there's the door.
And then the final thing that happened, at least that I was following, is Trump got fined.
Yeah.
And got held in contempt. He got fined $9,000. Who cares about that? But the judge threatened that he might put him in jail if he keeps tweeting or truthing or whatever you call it on his platform. Isn't that funny?
He is. Who do they think they're trying to control here? He has his own platform and an army of people.
He literally has an army around him. Like, if he goes to jail, they go with him.
Yeah.
That'd be imagine that Secret Service detail.
It feels like an inconsequential amount where it's like almost a swear jar for him, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'll keep bugging him. Like,
yeah, it's
whatever.
nothing.
Like, just find me. I don't care.
It's like, okay. And then he comes back. As soon as that happens, as soon as he gets out of court, he starts bashing the judge again. I'm sure he doesn't care at all.
The only thing they can actually do is like take everyone's cell phone away in his universe.
If he actually had like dictator tendencies, these people should be way freaked out. But of course he doesn't, because he's definitely favored to win the election. So if he won the election, he could just do retribution on all of these people who are just balling on him. Imagine sitting all day long. You're Donald Trump. You're a former president, future president, very likely. And you're hearing like the craziest people, one after another, testify against you in New York. How could you not want to vent about it?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be so wild.
Yeah. When's it going to be over? Does anyone know?
I feel like they're going to keep it going as long as possible just to
Yeah.
keep him off the campaign trail.
Yeah.
It's almost helping, though. Like, I feel like he gets more airtime
Oh,
the
yeah.
more case updates that there are. And so, in a way, he's probably like, yeah, I'll say whatever, and more people listen. And this is how much would you have to spend on marketing dollars to get the same exposure?
He's so good at this. Turning like what seems like sure losses into wins. That part of him is pretty crazy. And like I think it's really good for him if he gets found guilty, oddly enough. I think that's like a really good thing. Because these things are so ridiculous. This one in particular, some of the cases, you know, there might be something interesting. This one in particular is like, you should have used campaign funds since it was a campaign expense or incident. Like, and like, what are we talking about? We're talking about like this Stormy character. And they're trying to say like, hey, that's 33 felonies. Him getting in New York City, which went 88%, in Manhattan, which went 88% for Biden, him getting found guilty, and a judge who obviously is a Democrat, and a DA who's obviously like ran on the prospect that he was going to get Trump. Like him getting found guilty is only going to reinforce everything he's been saying. It's not going to, him actually being found not guilty might be bad for him.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, oh, it's a fair system. But it's not going to be a fair system. So they're going to find him guilty. And I think at that point, you know, start measuring the drapes.
The dude has endless energy. Like, he just never turns it off.
He seemed to be younger. He looks younger than he did when he was in office.
Yeah.
He does have a lot of energy.
There's got to be something on that with how old Biden is looking to be like, I got to step up the exercise thing.
Yeah.
You know, like actually put on some skin cream or something, right?
Yeah.
To be like, anything we can do to make that separation look even more pronounced, why not do it?
What if he started hitting the gym? Trump comes out ripped in the fall. Let's go.
I see him golfing all the time.
Supposedly he's a good golfer.
Yeah.
Dude.
I think that's the only exercise he's done since college. But
Well, you know, his theory on exercise has been widely reported, and that is if you just sit there, then you can't die. It's when you're moving around that it'll get you. His theory is like it's good to be sedentary.
and he doesn't have a diet that would win any awards.
No, he eats McDonald's every day
Diet
because he
Coke.
doesn't trust any other food. He thinks everybody else will try to poison him. So he goes to McDonald's. He's been doing that for 40 years. That's crazy.
Supersize me. We don't need no documentary on that.
Not to get too lost in this, but how funny was it when he had the national champions of, I believe it was college football, one year, and he's president. And they're expecting a great White House meal, 5-course dinner, like a meal that only the White House could provide. They show up and he's got a bunch of Big Macs on a tray. He's like, let's dig in, gentlemen. That's so intense. Like, we could literally get this anywhere. We're at the White House.
There you go.
He's a wild dude. He's
But
a
who
wild
gets to say
Big
they've
Mac.
eaten a Big Mac at the White House?
That's true.
You know?
Well, it is a very memorable.
Yeah.
Like, I remember it.
Yeah.
So that part's cool.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't have any complaints on it. And people can poo-poo it all they want, but a Big Mac every once in a while, pretty dang good.
It does.
Big
Pretty
Mac is
dang
very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in a little bit more of your war stories as a franchisee. 9 is a lot, right? You weren't scared.
Depends on who you talk to, but yeah.
Right out of the gate, though. There's obviously a lot of franchises, and there will be a lot more in the future. Do you recommend it for certain types of people? Do you not recommend it? And ultimately, if you could summarize like 3 or 4 things that you learned, what would those be?
I definitely don't recommend it for everyone. And, you know, knowing what I know now, I would have done things differently. But really, you either have to go big enough to then be able to hire people to help you out, and that's true in any business, or you have to be very intentional with how you did it. We kind of just said, hey, we're going to grow with whatever they'll give us as quickly as possible. So those are spread out in 3 different states and 3 different groups of managers and things. And the benefit behind that, which we're kind of coming from more of a, you know, hopefully tech background, trying to A/B test different softwares and different ways that we would do things. And ultimately we found out the only way that you really can succeed long-term is one system in addition to what they give you from the franchisor level across every store. You can't really let managers operate the way that they want to, maybe. And we thought, oh, we'll give them some flexibility. Maybe they know what's best. And you just learn that just makes everybody's life harder because as the business owner, it's harder to keep people accountable, and accountability is really the most difficult part. So one of the big mistakes that we made is doing some stores in California, which just lots of challenges in itself with that. It took a year to get the permits approved. And then we actually had a contractor that stole our money, stole some materials.
Oh my gosh.
Worst case scenario, where I will never forget sitting in the kitchen, chatting with my wife and just realizing we got to just go. And so we drove down there, and I walk in, and this is COVID time when Tiger King or whatever it was called was getting really popular.
Oh yeah.
And I remember walking into the store, and in the back of my mind, I could just think of Tiger King saying, like, I will never financially recover from this, because they had been lying to us saying that our first store that was going to open was 80% done. And really anyone who knew construction would have walked in and said, like, this is like 30%. And that was just debilitating. I mean, we had all of the equipment there, all of these things. And then, basically brute forced getting those open, doing the plumbing ourselves. I ran the low voltage. Like, the blessing was really having to learn every detail to the business to not only get it open, but then to start running it, and, every little piece, all of the softwares, all of the ordering, everything to go together. And then a part that I didn't realize that would be so difficult was dealing with people that are employees that want to work, and then when you're slow and you have to tell them to go home. I had one young man tell me that basically, I don't want to be at home because of my home situation. Please let me work. I need the money. I don't want to be at home. And realizing I can now really understand how some business owners can't handle it, because they're really having to affect the lives of those that are employees. And I had to tell him, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't run this business long term if I let you stay here. I know it's just one time, but that compounds over and over again. And that was one of the hardest things. It was really emotional to have to do that, rather than just like, hey, get your labor down. Your percentage is too high. There's so much more. And I feel like that gives me a cool perspective as now I underwrite all of these different debt deals, looking at this to say, like, your labor's high or your materials, there's so much more that goes into those numbers than just get it lower, right?
Yeah.
Just hire less people, fire some people.
Yeah.
Right? There's an emotion behind that, and understanding that. I think I come with a lot of empathy for the different people that I work with, because, you've lived it and you've had to do it. So I would say some of those are the biggest learnings from the process.
Yeah. Sounds like you've earned it.
I wouldn't want to do it again. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Kudos to you and your wife and your family for buckling down on that. Those stories are far too frequent. On a higher note, though, you did go to Nashville for a half marathon, but there was a dual purpose there because you have some franchises there, right?
Right. Yep.
And which ones are performing, of the 3 different geographic locations, which ones are performing better?
So in each group, there's actually typically one store that revenue-wise is performing good. So across the 3 states, it's pretty similar. And then really it comes down to management as far as what's getting to the bottom line. Even at some of the lower performing stores, unfortunately, I had the experience of showing up to one of my stores and being very disappointed. And it was a bummer because I got in late. We had gone and got dinner, and my whole family came out to support. My brother ran with me in the race, and the race is the next morning, but I'm like, hey, let's go get cookies. I'm going to do a surprise visit to my store. And we get there, and it was way dirtier than I wanted it to be. The person that was working had actually been a manager that had been recently promoted, and she kind of just lied and, made things up. And it was just a bad experience, bad enough to where I had my family, we all jumped in and helped and cleaned up and helped them get prepped for the next day. And I'm like, man, if this isn't business ownership where you're like, life is good, I'm here to enjoy this, and then you end up actually doing more work, going to bed later than I thought, and then, life continues on. So I got to wake up at 5 a.m. to go run this half marathon which was a great time. And Nashville was a lot more of a hilly track than I was expecting, so it kicked my butt. But like that's just life. And as you're running, I felt like I too out of breath to talk to my brother as we're running, so it's a lot of time to just think, and how many parallels there are in an endurance run with doing business and just trying to be a good person. All of these ups and downs, and these times where mile 6 I felt a runner's high and I was like, we're gonna crush this, and then a mile later I'm like, I don't think I can keep this pace. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, good time, but still learning, and we're still growing. We're still making adjustments as we are, but thankfully we're at a spot where it's fairly steady and predictable.
Yeah. So the myth of like, I can just own one franchise, whatever it is, and live like a upper middle class lifestyle, probably not true.
I mean, I think it all depends. There are some that can be huge opportunities. Like my wife works with a restoration group, and if you do restoration correctly, there's a ton of money in it. And you can start relatively inexpensive where, it's basically you pay your fees and you get a truck and you can start working, right? You pay for ad spend, and that's really it. But once you've gained relationships, I would say if you're trying to do it in a retail environment, QSR, then no, you can't just have one. I mean, maybe if you're a Chick-fil-A owner, right, where they're doing $8 million in top line revenue per location, then it's like, okay, you can make good enough money to live well. But those are all outliers, I would say.
Yeah. Back to Initiator, you're doing this with Clinton Jolly and Landon Ainge, right?
Right.
And anyone that's talked, I don't know Clinton, but Landon knows a thing or two about how money works and finance. It's always fun to talk to him. How are you guys like marketing and getting new customers? Have you guys, has your thesis proved out, or have you been thrown some curveballs and you've had to adjust?
There's always curveballs, but the blessing with partnering with such good people is Landon has tons of connections, got a huge network, and he's super knowledgeable himself, does a lot more on the equity side. So we get a lot of opportunities to provide debt as people are in between rounds. They're trying to stretch that a little bit further before they go raise some more equity. There's a lot of value that we can bring there. And then Clinton has a background in debt and has tons of experience. I don't know too many people that know more than he does, and has done quite a bit of volume, done over 1,000 loans. And in doing that, there's this cool synergy of us bringing different pieces together as partners and being able to look at things from different perspectives, which I think really allows us to not only help the entrepreneurs, but give them a good idea of where they're going. And especially on the equity side, it's hard to know the right answer with that a lot of the time. So if we can bring in a second component and talk to them as entrepreneurs, all of our conversations are free. We talk with you initially and we get paid on the back end, if anything, funds. So it's all a long-term approach, and that's what we pride ourselves on, is we'll talk to you strategically. I love talking through how a deal can get done, whether that's using the SBA to buy a business. We've got one right now where they're buying it with just $5,000 down because the owner is holding back 10% of the equity for more than 40 months. And so in the SBA, they'll be able to use a 7A loan and get that for $5,000 out of pocket.
Yeah.
That's, for many people, a life-changing event. And in doing that, it's just exciting for me. It's a win-win. And we try to, so on the marketing piece, we don't spend any money on marketing. Everything is off referrals. And so anyone that has relationships where they can provide leads or people that are needing funding, we've found a really good synergy where, since we don't charge, people feel comfortable introducing their friends and their family to us to help them find the debt that they need. And then we'll compensate our referral partners by doing that. And it's really just grown organically. And in addition to posting on LinkedIn, and I've now been doing that for a little over a year and starting to enjoy the process. But that's another, way that we've been getting business.
I love that. And I think most people listening and most people in this ecosystem would benefit with a half an hour, 45 minutes, however y'all talk to them, whether it's you or Clinton or Landon, you're going to learn a lot for free.
Right.
And that by itself is worth a lot because there's lots of ways to skin the cat.
Yep.
And a lot of folks don't know all those ways, but you guys have a good understanding of what those are. So the types of folks, entrepreneurs, business folks that should reach out to you are?
Anyone whose business is doing over $1 million in revenue and has an interest in securing their future to make sure that they're just protecting themselves in case there is a downturn, or those that are looking to grow, because there's a lot of places you can get capital. I would say talk to your bank, see what the bank can do for you. And if they're not going to do anything, or the other part is they just take much longer, then reach out. Would love to chat that through. I would say one of the challenges we're working through is I'm way too open with my schedule and give people time, even when it's probably not a great fit, but I genuinely want to help. And that's something I got to figure out a little bit better, how to maybe filter that.
Yeah, you got to learn how to say no, man.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not great about that.
You'll get there. That's because you come from a good family who refuses to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
You're very service oriented. All right. Hey, great to see you.
Yeah. Nice
Thanks
to see
so much
you.
for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, also, I just want to give a quick plug to University of Utah David Eccles School of Business and their Masters of Business Creation program. Make sure you check that out. It's eccles.utah.edu/MBC. I think it's a very cool program.
Yeah.
First one ever in the nation, and I believe a bunch have come since. So check it out. And who do we have tomorrow?
Ryan Bellissimo. There's going to be a really cool conference this summer called Progression, and we'll be talking about that. It'll be up in Park City.
Okay, cool. See you tomorrow.